I'm going to get emotional when I think about this. I really saw so much warmth and affection in my friends. They took such good care of me.
Yeah.
And, I'm lucky.
Yes, you are. Everyone, and welcome to Life with a Cheri on Top. I am your host, Cheri Hagan, and today I am joined by my friend Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Cheri.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me because I know this was quite the drive for you.
A little bit. I do love this area, though. It's fun to drive through. It's beautiful, especially with all the snow.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. She doesn't live nearby, obviously. So it took her, an hour almost?
40 minutes.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Today, I wanted to talk about being your own medical advocate again, because when I was showing Amanda a house recently, she and I used to be coworkers. Let me back up a little bit. She and I used to be coworkers, and we've always kept in touch, and I'm her realtor. Thank you very much for that, by the way.
Thank you. Best realtor.
Aw, thank you. So I was showing them a house, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and through social media, I had known that she was struggling with some health issues. And so I had asked her about it when we were looking at the house. And I just simply asked, what happened? How were you diagnosed? And then you gave me the very abbreviated version of what happened. And I was like, wow, that sounds so much like what happened to me.
Very much, yeah.
So I wanted you to share your story, and you were gracious enough to say yes. So
I'm happy to. Actually, it's like free therapy. So I appreciate it. I'm still at that point where it's good to talk it through and kind of process it.
Yeah. Let's talk first about Cushing's disease, period, because a lot of people aren't even going to know what that is.
Yeah, it's very rare, actually. And one of the things I've learned since getting diagnosed is how difficult it is to get diagnosed. Because even if you're presenting with many of the symptoms, because it's so rare, doctors will often say, there's no way you have this. It's too rare. And so it's hard to even get the testing for it. But so Cushing's syndrome is any kind of excess cortisol in your body. Right. So cortisol is the stress hormone. We produce it naturally. We need it to live. And there's a lot of reasons why your body might be producing too much. And so when that happens, no matter what the source is, they call it Cushing's syndrome. And because it can come from a variety of sources, even once you know you have that, it's a much longer process to figure out, okay, why is this happening in your body? Right. And so I did finally get diagnosed with Cushing's disease, which is a subset of Cushing syndrome. And what that means is that the cortisol was being caused by my pituitary gland, which is that tiny little gland behind your nose. Brain. Yeah, it's right up there next to your brain. I actually had a tumor in my pituitary gland, very, very small. Okay. And actually, a lot of people have them. They're pretty common.
My stepmother does.
Now, is hers producing?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So you can have them and not have symptoms. And in which case they just want to leave it alone because it's brain surgery to take it out. But in my case, it was causing that excess cortisol, and it was causing a whole bunch of medical symptoms to go along with it. So I had to have brain surgery to remove it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about kind of your symptoms first, and then how you were finally diagnosed.
Yeah, that was, and I also, again, I've read a lot because when something happens, I like to research it. I like to know what's happening.
Me too.
I've since learned a lot about the disease, and it can take people decades to get diagnosed. Yeah. In my case, I think I was sick probably about 6 years. So it's probably, And because it starts slow, it's just what struck me. I listened to the conversation that you and Jamie had. Love Jamie. She's great.
She's awesome.
What struck me about the conversation that you guys had is you were both so confident that something was wrong with you. Yeah. And you really, it felt like you really slipped into that role of being your own advocate very easily. Right. I did not have that experience. I was when I started getting sick, I really trusted the doctors that were telling me this is normal. It started.
This is normal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because for me, it really started with mental health symptoms. I was anxious. I was very anxious all the time. And the first time I saw a doctor about it, they said, oh, that's normal. We'll put you on the drugs for it. And unlike you, I said, okay, great. And I went on Lexapro, and it helped a lot.
Okay.
And because I think the cortisol was still low enough that it was counteracting it.
Sure.
And I was okay for a while. And then I started to gain weight, and not normal weight gain for me, because I've never been a super thin person, but like all of a sudden it was like right around my middle, and it would not go away. I was hardly eating because I was so nervous all the time.
Right.
But I was still gaining weight. And again, went to another doctor, and like, well, you're getting up there in age. It's normal perimenopause. Everything's normal,
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, have you tried intermittent fasting? I'm like, I don't eat. So yes, I have tried intermittent fasting. It is not working for me. So I went to a lot of doctors, and then when my symptoms really started to accelerate, it was 2020.
Okay. Oh God.
Yes.
No doctor wanted to even see anybody.
Exactly. And so when I did, and the real scary symptoms were blood pressure spikes.
Yeah.
And at one point, I went to the hospital with one of these blood pressure spikes, and they did a scan of my lungs and thought, oh, well, you probably have COVID. And at that time, It was taking like 2 days to get a real COVID test back.
Yeah.
So they admitted me, and I stayed in the hospital, but then I felt fine. And eventually it took like 3 days to get released, and they ran every test they could on my heart, lungs, everything. And they're just saying, well, there's no reason for you to have these problems. And
it's all in your head.
Exactly. So I went home kind of just not really knowing what else to do.
Yeah.
And you just kind of keep living your life. And then it happened again. And I really thought I was having a heart attack because I started to panic.
Yeah.
Went back to the hospital again.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm seeing my regular doctors. I'm telling them all these symptoms. I'm getting blood work back that's, your cholesterol is getting really high. Your blood pressure is getting really high. And I'm like, I'm a very active person.
Right.
I work out 6 days a week. There's no reason for this to be happening to me. And finally, I just started Googling. I went to Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
Dr. Google. And I was like, these are all my symptoms. And the Cushing's disease came up. And I remember very clearly what struck me was there was actually a diagram of somebody with Cushing syndrome, because the way you gain weight is so specific. It's like right behind your neck, right through your midsection. And the only way I can describe it is I looked like Shrek. Like
Okay. Amanda has never looked like Shrek a day in her life. She's beautiful, by the way. But go ahead.
It was just...
You felt like Shrek.
I felt like Shrek, and I saw a picture of myself from the side that someone had taken of me. I'm like, that is not me. That is not my body.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear. I don't have a problem with being overweight. I don't have a problem. I love fat people. I do not want to come across as weight shaming at all. It was just...
It wasn't normal for you.
It wasn't me.
Yeah.
I wasn't myself. And that was something clicked that I'm like, okay, I need to start advocating for myself now. I can't take no for an answer anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do I have this right that somehow you did your own test?
I did. Well, okay. So then this comes back to me being a little bit terrified of doctors, and just, I didn't know if I could go in and get dismissed again, because I had asked for help in so many different ways. And just the only answer I was getting was diet, go to a therapist,
So they never even considered like a thyroid issue or anything?
What? They did do a thyroid panel, and my thyroid came back normal.
Okay.
I think I had a slightly swollen lymph node, and they had sent me in for an ultrasound, and that came back normal. And so they didn't do any further testing after that. So they did. I mean, I don't think any doctor did anything malicious. I think they were doing the best they could with the information they had. But
can I just interject for a second
course.
and say, medicine is not an exact science.
Yeah.
And I've said this when Jamie and I were talking about it too. Yeah. Doctors aren't perfect.
No.
They're human beings, and misdiagnoses, is that a word? Misdiagnosis?
It is now.
Misdiagnosis, whatever, is common. Yeah. And that's why you really need to listen to your body and listen to yourself. And I'm so glad you did. But I'm sorry, go ahead with your story.
Yeah, no, so you're right. I did. I was terrified to go into another doctor and just kind of get dismissed. It was starting to make me feel crazy.
Yeah.
And after I read all of that stuff about cortisol, I'm like, oh, well, there's all these home tests now. Can I just home test myself for cortisol? and did some Googling, and it's not exactly a home test, but you can send away for a lab test.
Oh.
And they do this thing. It turns out that the best way to test for excess cortisol is a late night saliva test. So they send you these test tubes and you kind of spit into them. And then I sent it back to the lab. And I honestly, because I felt so unsure of myself, I was really kind of expecting it to come back as, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, which was kind of going to be a bummer, honestly, because at that point I don't want to be sick, but I do want to be diagnosed.
Yes.
It came back and it was like, there was like this line of normal and it went down here and I was up here. Okay. I'm like, okay, well, that seems like it's
definitely
something.
It. Yeah.
And so it just so happens that my husband, he's a medical assistant and he works in a doctor's office.
Okay.
They have an endocrinologist there.
Oh, okay.
And so he kind of knows her. They're not like, he doesn't work closely with her, but he's like, hey, maybe you should go see her.
Yeah.
And I came into her with this lab test, again, expecting a little bit to be dismissed. So I brought the lab test and kind of written out, like, these are all my symptoms. So I wouldn't get nervous and forget.
Yeah.
She was very calm about it, but then she started asking me questions about things that were symptoms I hadn't even really realized I had. A specific kind of stretch mark that's like really red that had never happened to me earlier in my life. And just and at the very end, she was like, I think you have Cushing's. And she's like, so from here on, it's, she's like, I don't want you to be scared. She's like, but we're going to have to do a lot of testing, take a lot of blood and, you get to do the whole pee in a jug thing. I don't know if you've ever had to do that.
No.
Like, there's a urinary test where you have a jug of pee that you have to carry around with you all day.
Oh, how fun.
Oh, it's not. It's really not. So gross. But but she was great. And she was very matter of fact. And she's like, this is what I think. And this is, we're going to start doing the diagnostics. And from there, it was just a couple of weeks of intense testing. Once they confirmed through their own tests that the cortisol was in fact high, then they started looking for source. So I had to do a couple of other tests where they give you a drug and they see what your body does.
Okay.
And then I had to do an MRI with a special machine. Not all MRIs can detect these tumors because they're so small.
Small, yeah.
So they had to send me to a special MRI machine and get that done. And then they saw it. And
wow.
Yeah. From there, it was really fast. And I'll tell you what, I was so chill about the whole thing because I was just relieved.
Yeah.
I
was going to ask you about that because I remember when the allergist of all people had diagnosed me with Hashimoto's. Yeah. He called and said, okay, yeah, you have Hashimoto's. That's your problem. Easy fix.
Yeah.
Let's move on. And I was crying, not because I had Hashimoto's, but because
you're so relieved.
I was so relieved that I had something.
Yes. And it's treatable, It's not the end of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can deal with anything as long as I can take action.
Yeah, right.
It's the inability to take action that I really struggled with.
Yeah. Well, thank God. So you had brain surgery.
I had brain surgery. It's funny. Sometimes when I'm not feeling it at work or I have to do something really tough, I'm like, okay, guys, but 5 months ago I had brain surgery. Right. Okay. So can we just take it easy on me? No, I mean, it really, brain surgery. I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but it was less of a big deal than I would have thought. Really? Let me say it's less of a big deal than it would have been a decade ago, because a decade ago they would have had to cut my skull open and but medical technology now they can go in through your nose. So I had an ENT that came in and drilled a hole up there, and then and then my brain surgeon went in and he took it out.
So you didn't your head didn't need to be shaved, anything?
No, nothing like that. Yeah, I was really lucky.
That's amazing.
I know.
Okay, here's a stupid question.
Yeah, no stupid questions.
No, it's a stupid question. I'm sure it is. Does your nose just magically heal itself? Is that hole gone?
No, that's not a stupid question at all, because there are a lot of different ways to do the surgery. And I really lucked out living where I do, being close to a major medical center. It just so happens that there is the head of neurology at Rush is this pituitary surgery is his specialty.
Who's your doctor?
Dr. Richard Byrne.
Okay.
Yeah, he's great.
Awesome.
He's a little intimidating. He's just the right amount of arrogant for somebody that you want rooting around in your brain.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I want you to be confident.
Yes.
So he was great, and he just really put me at ease. And he's very good. And he partners with an ENT, a surgical ENT, which I can't say his name because it's Greek. We call him Dr. Papa G. Okay. Papa Gianulius or whatever. Also weirdly, like, very hot. So like a really good looking guy. So it was very kind of embarrassing to be like really at my worst in front of him.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was odd. But no, he was great. And so the ENT basically decides what kind of, incision is needed based on the structure of your nose.
Okay.
And so after my surgery, sometimes they have to take fat from your stomach to fill the hole.
Oh.
If it
really,
I
okay.
know. I was really hoping they wouldn't have to do that with me, and they didn't. But they do. They like right before surgery, they sterilize the area just in case they have to cut it open during surgery. But they did not have to do that for me. My nose structure did not require it. And after surgery, they kind of pack it with some packing material and just some tissue that they have left over, and then they see what happens.
Wow. So it just closed on its own.
Yeah, it heals on its own, just like any other wound after a while. I had to go back and forth to the ENT quite a bit. The major complication that I had was actually terrifying, but turned out to be very benign. I had horrible nosebleeds.
Oh.
And that started after I'd come home from the hospital, because I was in the hospital for 5 days. And so by that time, most of your complications are kind of worked through.
Sure.
And they send you home. A couple days after I was home, I started having nosebleeds that would just bleed and bleed and bleed for hours, like really scary. Yeah. And so the first time that happened to me, it was a Saturday, and I called the office, and they were like, well, go to the ER. So we went to the ER, and the ER is like, they basically just put a clamp on it. Yeah. And they're like, there's nothing we're not going to root around up there. You got to go see your surgeon. We're not doing anything. Thanks. And that happened for a couple times before I could get in to see my ENT. And he went in and just cauterized all of the blood vessels, and then it stopped. But yeah, that is the hardest part of the surgery, is just your nose healing, and you can't blow your nose, and you can't bend over, and you can't do pretty much anything because you don't want your brain to pop out.
No, you certainly don't. I mean, I have nothing to compare that to except by saying I had sinus surgery.
I bet it's very similar.
Oh, I bet it's not.
Well, no, they're not putting a hole into your brain. That's the thing, is you actually can leak cervical spinal fluid.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing they really want you to be careful of. But that did not happen to me, fortunately.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. What an ordeal.
It was a lot.
So from beginning to end, it was how many years? Well, that you knew about, I guess.
From the time that I got diagnosed, I had surgery 6 months later.
Okay.
So that was a really quick turnaround. I would say that from 2020 to 2023 was when I was sick and didn't know why.
Okay.
And that was really sort of I was increasingly debilitated in terms of just my energy levels and not wanting to do anything, and the weight gain, and just I bruised really easily, like just weird things. My hair started falling out. Things that all seemed individually to be maladies that you could fix, with this medicine or that medicine, or some Rogaine for your hair, but you put them all together, and it was just.
And how's your recovery going?
It's interesting. It's I read a lot of forums for people that have this disease, just to I like to know what's ahead of me. And the recoveries are so different. Some people are still having trouble years later. Some people are having recurrences.
Really?
Yeah, I guess the pituitary tumors can grow back pretty easily, and depending on the quality of your surgeon, they might leave edges. And if they do that, then it's going to grow back. Yeah. Faster.
But they got clear margins on yours?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
And that's part of why I feel so lucky to have found the surgeon that I did, is that he's just really world renowned for this. And if you're not doing it all day, every day,
sure,
you're not going to be as good at it.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. So I feel really good about my recovery from the actual tumor. Uh-huh. What happens to you hormonally after they take that out is that your body has forgotten how to make its own cortisol, or how to make cortisol correctly from your adrenal glands.
Right. Which sit on top of your kidneys, I think.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You should be a doctor.
Oh, yeah. Much. It's a joke around the house. Kevin calls me Dr. Hagan all the time.
You know your stuff. So what happens right after surgery is you technically get the opposite disease of Cushing's, which is called Addison's. Whereas if your body doesn't make enough cortisol, that is also very dangerous.
Is that also called Graves' disease?
Yes. Addison's and Graves are the same.
Okay.
Technically, that's what happened to me after surgery. I got very, very sick the first day after my surgery, because they did not medicate me right away, because they wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And
they wanted to see how your body responds.
Right. And so I found out that when I don't have any cortisol, I am miserable. It is the worst feeling. So right now I am on medicine to regulate my cortisol production.
Okay.
I get tested every couple of months to figure out, where am I in terms of how my body is learning to make it again.
Right.
And I have to kind of keep decreasing my medicine and to increase my body's likelihood of making its own cortisol.
Okay.
So it's kind of a balance because what should happen in a normal body is your body knows when you're stressed and it makes the right amount of chemical to respond.
Right.
I have to sort of manually figure out what's stressful for me and take the right amount of medicine so that I don't get sick. Yeah. So if I get it wrong, I can be really, really sick just kind of, it feels like you have the flu almost, like just body aches. And if you let it go too long, you start throwing up and then you have to go to the hospital and it's bad. But
oh my God.
So I guess that's a long way of saying my recovery is good days and bad days.
Yeah.
A lot of the initial symptoms that I had with the Cushing's, the anxiety, the weight gain have all started to reverse themselves, which is great. I feel like myself again.
Yeah.
I look like myself when I see myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
So that's really good. But it is still hard. And I am at the point where my friends and family have been so supportive of me through this.
Awesome.
And I just I'm tired of telling them I don't feel good today. I can't do this today.
Yeah.
Like I just really want it to be over.
Yeah.
I do.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you look fantastic.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Every time I see you, you look good.
Thank you.
But I'm sure there are good days and bad.
There are, yeah. There are some days where it's usually I'm back to work and I'm really fortunate that I get to work at home. But I have noticed even just the stress of being at work, there are some days that in the middle of the day, I'm like, man, I could really use a nap.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually rebound in the evening. And but there's still good days and bad days.
All right. Well, first of all, thank God you took control of things on your own because it could be much worse.
Oh, yeah.
Right now.
Oh, yeah. I could still be sick and not know why.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Of course. Thanks for listening to me. I think you probably know you feel bad when you talk about your health woes all the time, right? Like you don't want people to have to hear it. You don't want to think about it all the time. You don't want to be your disease.
Right.
But it's also so consuming.
It is. Yeah. I will say you're probably, I don't know, in some ways I think we're very similar. And with me and MS, it's, if I'm symptomatic, I try to push through the day anyway.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to complain about it.
Yeah.
I don't,
Nobody wants to be that guy.
No,
yeah.
I just don't. So, Kevin her husband's name is also Kevin.
but you're Kevin.
But my Kevin, yeah. My Kevin is really good about telling me, just relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you don't have to go to XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise I would just try to push through it and be miserable.
Yeah. My Kevin's like that as well. Although I'm sure he would tell you that I don't listen. No. I think I frustrate him. He's never seen me sick before. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me. I'm so independent and to have to ask him for help, to have to ask my friends for help.
It's hard. I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm going to get emotional when I think about this. I really saw so much warmth and affection in my friends. They took such good care of me.
Yeah.
And, I'm lucky.
Yes, you are. Listen, friendships are so important.
Yeah.
And just support in general.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad that you have a built-in support structure.
Yeah. And you know what? You helped me move.
But I didn't know anything was even going on.
That was probably just starting to put it all together that like, this is not normal pandemic weight gain, pandemic stress. And you had helped me move during that time back to an area where I was closer to my support network. And I think if I hadn't, that was a hard move because, it was the middle of the pandemic. There's no real estate available. And we really did it to be closer to our friends. And I think if I hadn't done that, I would probably, I don't know if I would have been diagnosed, and I certainly would not have had the right support system in place. So
things happen for a reason.
Yeah. Thank you for your part in that.
You are so welcome. But I'll just leave it at that. You're so welcome. But I didn't know I was helping with anything other than your real estate needs.
Well, you definitely made it much easier to do it.
Thank you.
It's funny too that you say I didn't know you had Hashimoto's. I knew about the MS.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I pushed for a better answer is a friend of mine that has Hashimoto's.
Okay.
And I think a lot of times with these endocrine disorders, it's really hard to get any of the specialists, like any of like the your regular doctors to see it. Like it's part of me wonders if it's because they happen to women more often. Like I feel a little bit.
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like we might be a little bit underserved in the in the doctor department.
But maybe. I will say that my doctor was female. That I went to, not my endocrinologist, but my regular doctor, who I went to at first because I didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm nauseous all the time.
Yeah.
I'm depressed, and I'm not a depressed person.
Yeah.
It's a symptom. And the first thing she did was throw a pill at me. And I said, I don't want to take a pill.
Right.
I'm telling you, it's a symptom of something else.
Exactly.
I'm not coming in here telling you I'm depressed and I need drugs.
Yeah.
So I was pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, don't just throw drugs at me. Yeah. Something's wrong.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think you did. You got very right. And I have learned in more of my dealings with so many different doctors throughout this that you really have to go in knowing what outcome you're looking for. If you just go in and say, I'm feeling XYZ, they'll just throw something at you to make you stop feeling that.
Right.
I went into my endocrinologist saying, I really want to know why this thing is happening.
Yes.
That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to make it feel better. I want you to tell me why it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think there's something, if you go into a doctor, they work for you, ultimately.
Exactly right.
They work for you.
Yeah. And they're not God. You know, so many people have that white coat syndrome.
That's how I was. I really was. I was like, I let other people tell me for so long what I should feel like and what was normal for me.
It breaks my heart.
I think that, if there's one thing I could go back and change, I would have advocated for myself earlier, for sure.
But you did it eventually, and that's all that matters.
I got there, yeah. And I also, the other thing that I think is cool is that the more of my friends that I've talked to about this, they're doing the same thing for themselves. They're putting things together and going to doctors and saying, no, I will not accept you have perimenopause as an answer for everything. Right?
Yeah.
Like, no, it is not it.
Well, it is I'm not even perimenopause anymore. I'm just plain old menopause.
Yeah. That's a big change. Yeah.
Huge change. Yeah. I'm not happy.
I don't blame you. I don't think I knew how much of our day-to-day feeling our hormones were responsible for.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I had always had issues from like day one. I got my period when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. I used to blame my mother because she had just had the talk with me the week prior.
Oh, well, that's good timing, though.
It was good timing, but she had just had the talk, and then I got it, and I was like, this never would have happened if you hadn't told me about it.
You cursed me.
I know. But then I from the first period on till I was 53, I think, I had issues. I used to say all the time, I can't wait to go into menopause. Like, I just can't wait. And now that it's happened, I'm like, I'd rather take the period every month.
Yeah, we get used to the period.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had any genetic testing done about your endocrine issues?
No. Funny enough, I'm the only one in the family that has had any of this.
Really?
However, that being said, I don't know my mother's side of the family at all.
Okay.
So I don't know their medical history, but on my dad's side, I'm like it.
Oh, you're a special flower.
Yes, isn't that nice?
I found out about a week after my surgery, one of my aunts came to visit me, and she just told me very matter of factly, she's like, well, it's because we have the MEN1 gene. I was like, say what?
Yeah. What is that?
Well, I learned throughout all of this that all of my mom's sisters had all had endocrine issues, endocrine tumors. All of theirs manifested in the thyroid, which is more common.
Yeah.
And they had thyroid surgery, and my one aunt that was visiting me, she had gone on to have the genetic testing done. And there's a gene, there's two of them. There's MEN something, and then MEN1 is the one that our family has. And it predisposes you for endocrine tumors. So any place in your endocrine system, you're more likely to get them.
I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either until my aunt told me this. And I was like, well, that would have been nice to know a couple years ago.
Yeah,
I probably would have been gone, oh, hey.
For my entire life.
Right.
Would have been, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess all this is to say, tell your family. And I called my brother right away and I was like, did you know we have this? He's like, I didn't know that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Don't keep it a secret.
No.
If you know your family has some sort of gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. They want me to get tested for, they want me to do genetic testing for breast cancer because it runs in my family.
Yeah.
But I go for my mammogram every year. I just recently had it like 2 days ago.
Me too. Well, last week, but yeah.
Yeah. I go for my mammogram every year. My mammogram is fine. And I'm just going to play stupid.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to know.
Yeah. I think, I want, and I haven't gone on to do the genetic testing myself, which is telling because I'm not sure I want to know more. I think I'm good at medical stuff for right now.
Yeah. You've got enough on your plate.
Yeah. It's funny. You talk about mammograms. I was supposed to get mine last year. And when I was doing my physical just a couple weeks ago, my doctor was like, hey, you never got your mammogram last year. I'm like, don't you think I was doing enough? Like, did I really need one more thing? Because last year was all medicine all the time. I did not need that. So, but I did go ahead and do it. You should absolutely do that.
Yes, you absolutely should.
Yes.
And Jamie's a huge advocate of that, obviously.
Gosh, yes. Yeah. And she found hers pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And still went through hell.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you don't want to let that go.
You do not want to let that go for sure. That's why I go for my mammogram every year.
Yeah.
I just don't need to know the genetics.
I think that's fair.
Behind the scenes.
I will say the one thing that I learned from this whole experience is that I do not ever want to be in the hospital for any kind of extended period of time again. It is miserable.
It's miserable.
It's just, and these people are, bless them, they are doing their best. They are working so hard. I could not do that job being a hospital worker in any capacity, but just being in that position, being so vulnerable all day, every day, people in and out of your room every hour.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, I would never want to be hospitalized again if I could help it.
At a point where you're supposed to be resting and they do everything in their power to make sure that you are not resting comfortably. And listen, I know they've got to do their thing, but it is a thing.
Yeah.
I've only ever been hospitalized for pneumonia because I had it 87 times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get it, you're more susceptible.
Yeah.
And I have asthma.
Oh, yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I generally get it once a year.
Yeah. Try to stay out of the hospital.
I do try to stay out of the hospital. I really do. I think the last time I was hospitalized for it, I was at the same hospital you were.
At Rush?
Oh, no. I thought you were the one by your house.
Oh, yeah. I was hospitalized at Good Sam when I had the unexplainable blood pressure spike. So I was at Good Sam by my house, but then my surgery was at Rush downtown.
Yeah. No, I was at Good Sam for, actually the last time I was hospitalized for pneumonia, I was in Philadelphia.
Oh, my.
It was New Year's Day. I knew I had pneumonia when I woke up. I flew home. I went straight to the hospital.
Oh.
Like straight to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was getting divorced at the time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Oh, it was glorious. It was such a lovely time in my life. And for 5 days, I was in the hospital by myself. Like nobody came to see me. It was horrible.
That makes me so sad.
Oh, yeah. Poor me.
No, I
got over it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
But yeah, it's miserable.
It is.
It's just not.
Yeah. And Rush. So I really liked my experience at Rush. But it's a teaching hospital and I had 4 medical teams for all the various things that were going on. So every time one of the medical teams came in, it was 5 people. So I had every day, all 4 teams, their whole, group of students coming in to do neurological tests and talk to me. It was like at the end of it, I was like, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
Please stop talking to me.
But it's so important. That's how they learn.
It is. Yeah.
And honestly, you're, one in a, whatever it is, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. 1 in a million, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny too is that now all the doctors in my husband's office are familiar with me and my case. And so they test every time they have anything that is even remotely indicative of Cushing's, they test for cortisol now. All of them. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes they just do what they know, if you've never seen anybody with it. And my doctor, it was only the second case in her whole career she had ever seen as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's very rare.
That's so interesting to me because coming from veterinary medicine, Cushing's disease is actually
dogs.
It's actually very common in dogs.
It is, yeah. It's funny because when I first started Googling for support groups, a lot of them are for dogs. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
The poor dogs.
Yeah.
I do love dogs, so maybe that's, it's an empathetic thing. I don't know.
Very weird that it's so common in dogs and not in people.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why I know so much about it, by the way.
Oh, could be.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had done veterinary medicine. No, I don't. I must have missed that part of your bio. You've done everything.
I know.
It's amazing.
Is it?
It is actually. That is a life well lived. All of
thank
the adventures
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I look at it as I was a hot mess for a long time and didn't know what I wanted to do.
Oh, see, I think just the opposite. I think that's great. I think we force people to choose a life path too early, and
I do too. I just talked about that.
Yeah, one of my friend's kids is just starting high school, and they're asking her to think about her major.
Oh,
like she's 13 years old.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
I think it's weird. I think we put too much emphasis on taking your place in society and doing the right thing and being a productive member of society. And I think we miss out on a lot.
Listen, I couldn't agree more. And I just talked about that last week.
Good.
So if you haven't listened to that one yet,
go back and listen. I don't think I've listened to that one. So check it out.
But I did veterinary medicine when I was 20.
Oh, cool.
19 or 20.
Yeah.
I went to school to be a veterinarian. And then I dropped out because money overrode my passion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I always say if I am a millionaire,
yeah,
I would open my own veterinary clinic.
That would be cool. You don't find it hard to deal with sick animals? I think I would be sad.
No, not at all. Actually, I look at it the opposite way that I'm there to help.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like the best surgery. Wow, am I totally getting off subject here? I'm sorry,
but still medical.
Yeah,
we're on topic.
The coolest surgery I was ever a part of was Susie the Black Lab. Sweetest dog.
Yeah,
sweetest dog. She had been, coming to the same animal hospital forever, and they lived on a farm in Barrington.
Okay.
And Susie had been kicked by a cow.
Poor Susie.
Poor Susie. Oh. And she was a older lab to begin with. She was maybe 10.
Okay.
From her tail to her shoulders, the skin had been removed.
Oh my God.
Because the cow had kicked her so hard.
Yeah.
And it was one giant flap of skin. And obviously we had to sew that back on, but it was medically so fascinating to be a part of this and see it's literally seeing the inside of the dog,
Yeah.
And Susie did quite well.
I'm so glad.
Way. Yeah.
I love labs. They're great dogs.
Yeah. I love animals.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. We have that in common.
We do. Yeah. Sometimes more than people.
Yeah. My dogs were very good to me while I was sick.
I'm sure they were.
Excellent care of me.
Yeah. And they are very empathetic.
Yeah. They animals. Are. Yeah. My, actually, so being sick really kind of made me think about what do I do with the second half of my life, you know, because it snapped a lot of stuff into focus. So I've been thinking a lot about what other things I could do. And I would really, this is kind of sad, but my uncle recently died of cancer. And
I'm sorry.
Thank you. He was a great guy. But while he was in the hospital, there's a program, I forget what it's called, is down in Virginia, but they bring dogs in to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
love that.
It was like the best thing that happened to him the whole time he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was kind of putting it all together like, oh, I know how scary and horrible it is to be in the hospital. I love dogs, So I'd love to do something like that, a volunteer program. There aren't as many that I can find up here in our area, but
they still do it somewhere.
There are, yeah.
They do it at the children's hospitals.
Do they?
A lot. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, so a lot of them are. I think I want to volunteer with other people's dogs because God bless, I love my dogs.
I was going to say, I don't know that your dogs are the.
They're enormous, and one of them is very not nice to strangers, and one of them is so terrified of everything. Like I tried to take her on an elevator in the Yorktown Mall where they let dogs in. She would not get in the elevator. Yeah. So my dogs are not the best candidates, the ones I have right now.
They're great dogs.
They are, yeah.
They're great
just,
dogs. They're just not.
They're not.
I think it would terrify more people than it would relax them.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Maybe something a little smaller.
Yeah.
Give me a golden retriever or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And everybody loves a retriever.
They do. Yeah. They're good dogs.
They are. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story.
Thanks for listening to me babble about it. I appreciate
it. I think it'll help a lot of people.
I hope so.
Honestly.
I hope so. Yeah. And that's one thing that I'm just a strong advocate now for anybody that I can help urge them to take their medical concerns into their own hands.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Thanks, hon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
For those who want to comment on this or any other show, you can do so by emailing me at lifewithasherryontop@gmail.com, or you can go to the website, www.lifewithasherryontop.com, and comment on the show there. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.